Hello, chess players. Today I want to go over the Ruy Lopez exchange, Alapine Gambit. And I'm going to go over a game that I played, a quick 5-minute game, just to show what I did and just my thought process and the way the Gambit is. We're going to go over it in detail as far as what the whole entire point of it is. And to show, in my opinion, how it pretty much leads to equality with black. If anything, a slight, very minuscule advantage or easier to play style that black has through the opening. But I'm going to show, as far as with white, that there's a little bit of complexity too, and that if black is not careful and leaves everything the way it is and expects the same results, could end up losing his bishop, which we will see. As far as if you've not seen this opening before, the bishop is potentially sacrificed. So we have a Ruy Lopez, and here's the exchange. Now, castling, of course, is just for this gambit to take place. Castling is the move for this whole entire variation. And the next move, h3, is not a, in my opinion, kind of a recommended move unless you're ready for the draw. Because the Alapine Gambit is pretty much going to be probably played here. So I played through the line where bishop comes to e3. And this is the critical point that I was talking about for very drawish and a little bit easier to play with black. I recommend, if you're wanting to play for a draw, just go ahead and take and move the queen, and takes, pretty much forced. If you try to hold on to some material or queens on the board, you're going to run into this open file with queens on the board that's going to be pretty dangerous with white. I'll actually put on the engine. I just want to see. It's given an evaluation of a negative 1.4, and I think rightly so, that there is a problem. So this is not the variation that we went into. We played bishop d3, and this is where the variation gets a little bit tricky. So, knight comes to defend, and here's where you can immediately take the bishop. I didn't see this in the variation because I played this variation so many times, but you can take the bishop, and it leads to an advantage for white with a pawn. Pawn up, if I'm not mistaken. 1, 2, 3, 4. No, yes. Queen over. Pawn takes. Bishop. And yes, the pawn up. Or here, if we want to try to hold on to all of our material. And yeah, this was about the right line. This actually leaves you with the piece. But it's very difficult to play with white. Yes, you're holding on to everything, but it's very difficult to play with white. Like I was saying, you practically are trapped in the corner. Your two knights are going to be basically nothing more than an advantage for the end game. And if you can somehow get out of this and wriggle out of this, white will be better. But I did not play into this line because it was a little bit complicated. I went ahead and played something that was a little bit more simple. After knight takes, I moved my rook over. And this is where we have a little bit of equality after takes. But black blunders completely, because now we have the ability to make room for our king on f1, which the idea of the Alapine Gambit is to sacrifice the bishop, but sacrificing the bishop now leads to disaster. So here is not necessarily the best move, but the engine recommends over here. We'll play through this line just for a minute. I think this is a lot clearer of a line to see. Making room for the king. Bringing the rook over. Queen back. And we can trade. Takes. And this is actually probably dropping the knight back is probably simplest. Because after bishop comes over here, we're going to be trading off anyway, the exchanges. So that was probably the simplest part of the variation, to liquidate and show that white is clear. Let's see here. We'll go back to where we were at the game. So here. And the key thing is I have my knight that can move to f1, my d knight that can move to f1 to start gardening things, and I'm going to play with the piece up. Or if black goes into this variation, of course, he gives up a rook. But it's just going to be a solid advantage for white because there's no attack anymore. The G1 H or A8 A7 diagonal is no longer an issue with any type of checks, and everything's well guarded. So here's the simplest of moves from here, I think, to get out of danger. Is king f1. I don't see... actually, king f1 might be the only move here. You could probably play... Let's see. Could you play knight f1? Knight f1. Here, we'll just see if you can play knight f1. Knight f1 leads to a draw, it looks like. Or equal. Okay, yeah. Leads to equality. Back to, you have to sacrifice the knight again. Okay. And there's no way out of this, so yeah. Knight f1 actually would have lost, not lost, but would have given up the advantage. So king f1 actually here is the only move after castles. I'm pretty sure maybe, yeah, there we go. Knight c4 would have been an alternative to go ahead and get that bishop out and start trying to exchange down. But the key thing is you're going to be playing for king to f1 if there's any type of rook harassment. So to go back, castles, king f1, g3 immediately would have been advantageous. I did not play that. I moved my king to safety. Takes, and we have rook to h1. With rook to h1, this pretty much solidifies the advantage as far as what a normal person could probably see, a normal human player could see. There is no more attack on the king. There are several pawn checks, but after takes, knight takes, because there's no white or light squared bishop for black, there's pretty much no attack here. And we get into an endgame. So I didn't play that. We took, takes, queen over, and the last move to solidify the advantage, or with a clear advantage, I feel was queen to h5, making no room for error that white is a solid rook up, and black blunders with queen to e6, completely blunders as far as for a clear in-game advantage. Although the engine may not say this is a complete blunder, everything else has been blundering. I think to clearly win or have a more clear advantage, queen to f5 was played and black resigned, being that his queen no longer will be in commission. We're going to have a trade of queens, and we're going to play a rook up. So there you had it, the Alapine Gambit. I went over a few lines as far as the way it could be played. For black, advantageously, you want to, once again, I'll fast forward, you want to sacrifice this bishop. If this pawn is taken, I will show briefly, of course, what could happen or go wrong. Immediately, white is in danger and will have his piece taken back. Black can play aggressively and then just take bishops, and bishop moves, queen takes. Black has his piece back and has compensation. So as far as a gambit goes necessarily, I almost wouldn't even consider this a gambit because it's a very solid line. But with advanced play, of course, there's also knight b to d7, d2, which is a complex line that can be played with ideas of knight to c4 and c3 d4 ideas. That would be putting pressure on the center for white. This is an alternate line, but I decided not to go over it today. We just went over the game. If there are any more Alapine Gambit styles you would like to see, go ahead and leave comments or respond. You can respond directly to me at 2ninjabear@gmail.com if you have any email questions. And there is the Alapine Gambit, like I said. A nice little quick game that I played. If you enjoyed, like I said, go ahead and leave comments and tell me about it. Thanks.